Hi, I'm Sam, and welcome to part two of where we left off for the CSS space layout. This is where we are at the moment, and if you don't have the first part, you definitely want to look at the first part before you get to this very point. Finally, we are going to get to something roughly like this. So we're going to get this page to now look more closely like that. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go into the footer section. That's the footer section. We define it, but we want it to have some amount of space. Okay, I'm talking of some padding. So we want a bit of gap between the text, the content at the top and at the bottom. So I'm going back into that file, and I'll go to my style sheet again. From this point, we are using our style. So we go to the footer. We have discussed where to find the padding. So padding you find under the box category, and we want some space at the top and at the bottom of it. For the left and right, we don't necessarily need it, so we need some padding. And we say padding is inside, so the space between the content of your cell or your div and the walls of the cell or the div. So here I'm going to go to padding and check same for all. For top, I'll give top, let's say, about 15 pixels, and for bottom, I'll give it also about 15 pixels. When you click on apply, you now have some space at the top and the bottom. You may provide any amount of pixels that you find fit for your own project, but here that's where we're going to provide for the padding, and we are basically done for the padding. All I'm going to do here is to select my text, and I'll type here copyright. Okay, so copyright. And if you want to create a copyright symbol, you would find a copy here under text. And when you go to the text category of the insert bar, okay, I'm right here, you come to the very final end here, and you would select this. You would find a copyright symbol. When you click, the symbol is inserted. So I'm going to type 2011, all right, and I need 2011. Okay, so copyright 2011 and space, let's say designed by, and you can put your name or whatever down there. Okay, so that's what we have for. We finished with that particular section. Now we want to style this other section. We want a bit of space here, what we call the padding. Okay, we have some padding for the footer. We want some padding for this as well, and so I'm going to go, in this case we're going into this section called the content section. So again, I'll go to my style and double click on the content. That will bring up this, or you can select this and click on this pencil mark. It's the same thing as double clicking, right? So in the content section, I'm going to the box category. I want some space. My text is too close to the edge of this cell, and here we'll be doing a bit of calculation here. You want to take note of this carefully. Watch this. I'm going to go to the padding section and uncheck all. I don't necessarily need something for the top. If I do later, I may input that value, but for now I want the left and the right. So let's say I need, say, about 30 pixels. Okay, well, we have 70 pixels here, so let's make this 35 pixels for the right and 35 pixels for the left. And when I click apply, look at what is going to happen. All right, when I click apply, we now have our work distorted. Okay, we have that space anyway, but it doesn't fit anymore into the section. If you look at earlier tutorials, you would realize, or I discussed, that anytime you add padding to the width of your div, it adds up to the width of the div. So currently we have a div of 470 plus 35 plus 75, so we are adding 70 pixels to this. So in other words, we have a div of 540 pixels. So what we need to do to fix this problem is to subtract the addition of this, that's 70, from the value that we have in here. So I'm going to subtract 70, and that gives me 400. All right, so I'll type in 400, and if I click on apply, you will see it now fits perfectly into that space. Right, so now we have been able to fix that problem, and we're going to click on OK. Now we have fixed this. We need a few more content in there, so we're going to select this text here, the home page, and we want it to be an H1. So I'll select that, come down here and make it an H1. But you realize it makes all of my text H1. This is because I'll undo, Control Z. Okay, this is because I don't have enough space if I should go into the code, this is supposed to be a paragraph, and it's not at the moment. Okay, it's a break, a BR, and we don't want a BR, we want a paragraph. So I'll go into a design view, and I'll backspace this so it gets to the same line, and I'll press return to get a paragraph. Okay, let me go ahead and press return here. So we will be making this an H2. I'll go and create, let's say, another heading here. So this and this will be H2s. And we had a few things down in here, and on the list we will just go ahead and create some honored lists in there, just to see how we go with some stuff. So here I'll go into that and press return. You have one thing type. So let's say we want to make our 5 items. Okay, and we press sorry, return. So let's say 5 items. To make them an unordered list, before we will make one of them sort of the heading. So I'll type on ordered list. Okay, and I'll press return. So this is going to be the title, and these are going to be the items. So I'll select the items, come down into my property inspector, and I'm going to click on this button here on the list, and that is created almost immediately for me. So here I have a few subheadings, and I'm going to make this one an H1. So I'll click in here within the row. You don't need to select highlight, you can, but you don't need to. All you need to do is to click in, okay, and choose an H1. I'll go into this and I'll make this an H2, and I'll go ahead and make this an H2. Okay, if you have others, you can go and define them, but here you would see that it gives us the same font as that. And maybe for the heading you want a different color. Probably for heading 1 you want a different color. For heading 2 you might also want a different color. So let's go in and define headings for the H1. If we know this is going to be the only H1s that we're going to have in a page, then it might not be a problem if we define for all H1s. However, if we should come into this section and create an H1, it's going to have the same property as what we have in here. So for now, what we're going to do is, instead of defining for only an H1, because we may come back and make changes to our page, and we don't want to get in that problem. So what you're going to do is we're going to define H1s for the content area, and this is how we'll do it. So I'm going to my styles, and normally I'll click around here, but I probably might not have clicked at the moment. So when I click here, I am going to type hash content space, and you're going to type H1. Okay, so in other words, normally I read from back to from right to left. Basically what I'm saying is that all H1s inside the content div, and I'm going to click on OK. So what color do you want it? What sort of styles do you want for that? So here I'm going to go into my font family, and I'll choose Georgia. For the font size, I'm going to choose 25 to start with. Maybe for the font color, looking at the colors here, I probably may go for a lighter green. Okay, let's go for this here. All right, and Dreamweaver does a good job when you click on apply, so that you're able to preview. If you probably don't like it, you can go ahead and make changes or adjustments to it. But for now, I think I would stick with, let me try this one here. Okay, yeah, I'll stick with this. You can choose or play around with any colors that you want. Of course, you want to have colors that match with your work. Okay, you just don't want to choose any colors at all. You just want to go and then have colors that harmonize with your work. Okay, so that's what I have for now. I selected some color from within my grass here. So that's an H1, and I'll click on OK. So basically we have defined H1s inside this cell. So if for some reason, let's say I go and create an H1 in here, okay, currently this one is an H2. You can tell because I have H2. If I should change it to an H1, you realize immediately it takes the properties of what we have there. All right, I don't intend to make it an H1. I'll make it an H2. But what I'm saying is that if I go into this cell and I type something, that is not going to change, because the definition I have done or have made is for H1s inside the content area. Right, let's define our style for the H2, and this time I would go and define, because I know I'm not going to have H2s here, so I'll define a general H2 just to show you the difference between the two. So I'm going to go to styles. Otherwise, if you want to define specifically for this cell, then you can go and type hash content space H2. Okay, this time I'm going to make it just H2. So I will take off all of this and type just H2, and I'll click on OK. When I click OK, I'm going to go and down into this. I'll go for the same font family. That's the Georgia font family. I would, because I use 25 for that, I'm going to use here 18. Okay, and you can click on apply to see the changes that you have. And I'm going to go in and let me go for a font color. So under type, I'm going to choose a color. Maybe I want to use a different color in this case. All right, so you have that, you have this down there, and it changes with this as well. So any H1 that you're going to have, you would have it change. All right, so sorry, H2. Okay, so I'll click on OK, and sorry. The next thing we're going to look at, let's have this underlined. We can have it underlined or even have borders around it. If you look at the example we have in here, you would realize that we have this underlined and aligned to, say, the right side. So we may want to take it to the right. So we can go back to the H1 content space H1 that we created in the styles. So I'm going to go into that content H1. All right, here, double click on it, and we will go down into border. What you have there is a border underlining, so just at the bottom of it. So I'll uncheck same for all, and I'll go to the bottom. I need the border solid on the bottom. I would also uncheck all this at the top, and I want, let's say, 2 pixel margin at the bottom, and I want to choose the same color as I'm using here. Okay, if you have a different color, you can go ahead and change it, but for now I want to align this on to the right. So I can go to align to the right. You would find alignment for text and a block, and I'm going to choose text alignment, and I'm going to go for right. When I click on apply, all right, you see this move on to the right side. So we can create an align here. The only thing you have to know is, because this is a block level element, it will span the whole of that width, and we are okay with this for now. I'll click on OK. The next thing we're going to do here is to create other divs which will contain the images, and when we go into this, we have these divs 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that are contained within this particular element. And if you want to have a sneak peek at what is here, one of the images is our 137 pixels. Okay, so I would go into the div. When I roll over this div here, just to display some information, well, it doesn't show at the moment. Okay, so when you have here, this has a width of 138 pixels. All right, a width of 138 pixels. We have some space in between here, so a margin of 5 pixels on the left. We have a similar thing also here, a margin of 5 pixels on the left. When I go onto this, it's also got a margin of 5 pixels on the left, so we have a margin on each one's left. However, we have a margin on the right as well. So basically, when you look at this, the space between each of them is about 10 pixels. So we have 10 pixels space, 138 pixels for the div itself, and 10 pixels space in between them. Okay, so 5 on the left and 5 on the right. But for the first two, here we have about 30 pixels on the left, and also roughly something similar here. Okay, because it ends up to this point, we don't probably need to bother so much about the space in here. But 30 pixels for the first one, and 30 that's on the left of the first one, and 30 pixels for the right. So that's what we're going to go for. And so I'll go into that cell. That's the display. I have some text at the moment. I'll delete that for now, and I'm going to place the 4 images that I have. You can create a div before you put a image, or place the images and wrap the div around it, whichever way you prefer to. I'll go into my assets panel, and I'm going to look for some images. I think I named them Pix 1, Pix 2, Pix 3, and 4. I'll click on insert, and I'll call it Pix 1. Okay, now I'm not going to type all these names. You may go through that time pane, but for now I just want to insert the images just to save time, otherwise the file size is going to be really large. So I'm going ahead and insert all 4, and I'll click on insert and click on OK. So with this selected, I'm going to wrap a div around it. So I'm currently in a text category. I'll go to the common and I'll find my div right here, and I want to say wrap around. I'll call this ID, so I'm giving it an ID name of Pix1 just to relate to the image that's in there. So I'll go and maybe copy this to memory for now, so I can just paste them. Right, I'm going to select this one and I'm going to wrap the div around it, and I'll call it Pix2 ID name. Okay, so I'm using ID names here, and I'll click on OK. I'll go and select the next one and insert the div Pix3 and select the last one. Realize that they now don't sit on the same line, and because I'm wrapping a div, the divs are block level elements, so it doesn't allow something else to sit on its left or on its right. So currently we have all divs 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they are in a straight line. We want them to sit one next to the other. Okay, before we do that, let me use an image here to explain why the divs are behaving this way. And so I'm going to insert an image right here, just in front of this text, and I'll go to images and I'm looking for ND. So here that's an image of the CEO of the organization, and I'll select, that's the gentleman here. I'll click on insert, and you can say CEO. Okay, I've been avoiding this, but if you want to, you may want to fix them. Right, the idea here is that when we insert an image, the text sits at the bottom of it. We may want the image to be, let's say, on the top here. To be able to fix this, we say we want the text to float around the image. So the term is floating. First, to be able to successfully do that, we want to give the image itself a name. Okay, we want to give this image a name, and we're going to use that name to define rules for it. You might have seen floating already, and so we're going to float this image to the left, and when we float to the left, it will then allow this text to move up here and sit on its right side. So I'm going to select the image and I'll give it an ID name. Let me call it CEO. Okay, so I'm using CEO down here as the ID name, and because I have given it an ID name, I can now go and use my styles. So I'm going to create a new rule, and I will type #CEO. Okay, #CEO, and I'm going to click on OK. So what do we want to do? The only thing we want to do in this case is to float the image. Actually, two things. Okay, so we want to float. Floating is on a box category. We want to float the image to the left. If you float the image to the left, the image will move to the left, and your text will move to the right. Okay, so we have something like this. Should we change this to say right? We float, we change its position. We actually want to have it onto the left. Okay, but the text is now sitting so close to the image, and we don't want it that way. We want a bit of some space in there. Your guess might be right. We need some padding between we can use padding, that might work, but I think in this case a more appropriate one will be to use a margin. Margins, we said, will push other elements away from that particular cell, in this case this image. So we're going to go to the box category and we're going to go to margin, and we want only a right margin, so we uncheck this. We go and type, let's say, 20 pixels. Let's click on apply, and now we have a nice beautiful space around the image, and we will click on OK. So with this idea, we're going to float these other images. Remember, these images, these divs are inside, the images are inside divs, and they are all inside the display. So we're going to go in here. We call them Pix1, Pix2, Pix3, and Pix4, and so we're going to go into our styles and define them. To define them, I'll go in here and I'll click, and I want to define for, you want to type Pix #Pix1, okay, and you want to choose, it's an ID, so #Pix1, you choose an ID, and I'm going to click on OK. Well, the only thing I'm going to do here is to give, that's the first one, so I'm going to float it to the left in the first place. Okay, I'll float it to the left. Most of these are going to be almost similar, so we would duplicate the styles that we are defining for pix 1. So I floated it to the left, and I'm going to go to the margin and provide, so same for all. We saw that the first one we gave it the left margin of 30 pixels. So for the left margin, I'm going to type 30 pixels. Okay, so that will push this away, 30 pixels away from that cell, and we want to give it a right margin of 5 pixels, and I'll click on apply, and that pushes this a little bit away from that div. So with this, all the other ones are going to have similar properties, just that the left and the right will not be the same. The right in most of them will be the same. So I'm going to click on OK. Now, because we've invested some time in this, we can duplicate the rules for this. Before I go duplicating, let me create one more, and then I'll duplicate the last two. Okay, so I'm going to create rules for pix 2. Okay, that's the div called pix 2. With that, I'm going to go into my CSS panel, and I'll create new, and I want for pix 2. Okay, so you would get rid of all of this if you have them, and hash pix 2. Remember, I didn't provide spaces. ID names, we don't want spaces. I'll click on OK, and we want to provide we're going to go to box category, and we're going to make, well, there's one thing I forgot for the first one. We want to make the width 138. Okay, some of the images are already 138 anyway, but we want the width to be 138 pixels. We want to float it to the left, all right, and we also want to give it a margin of, for the right, a margin of 10 in this case, 5, and the margin on the left of 5 as well. So that pushes this a little bit away and that a bit away, and so we're going to make a duplicate of this very one. So I'll click on OK, and I'm going to duplicate this for that. So this is how we duplicate. When you come into the styles, we want to duplicate this style, right click on it, and we want to choose duplicate. Okay, so all we need to do here is to just change the name, and we'll make it 3. Change the name to to be the same as the next one you want to create. Click on OK, and almost immediately you see that that one is working. Okay, but so this and this are the same. The next one we need is the very last one. You don't want to forget about that. So I'm going to duplicate again one more time, and this time I would go right click, duplicate, and I'll change this to 4. Okay, I'll change that to 4, and I'll click on OK. It also adjusts. The only thing is that we don't necessarily need, well, we have 5 pixels here, and we have 5 pixels there. We can leave it just the same. Otherwise, you can fill that gap, but we are not threatened by that anyway. When we display, we're going to have this work perfectly for us. So let's preview this, and I think we have come very far. Hope this has not been too long. I'll go into my preview and preview in Safari. I'll click on save. Sorry, and reload. Okay, you have a big gap here. Yes, that's what it's supposed to be. Again, it's only in Internet Explorer that you may see the yellow color. Let's try and preview it also in another browser, Firefox, and that probably might take a little while to show up. Okay, whatever, start new session. And well, for some reason it's not just displaying, but both Firefox and Safari would do the same job. Something similar is going to show you this. Later on, when everything is working well, I'll check why Firefox is not working, but I'll come back and get you to do this. Before we probably go away, we can just fix the very last thing. Let's give a background color to this. Okay, to provide a background color, remember all of these things are fitted in the body, so we're going to create the body and give the body background a black color. So I'm going to go into my styles, and body is an HTML tag, so I'll click on that, and I'm going to choose tag redefine. That's for HTML, and I'll type BODY. All right, BODY, or you can go and select it from here, but I have it typed, so I'll click on OK. Now all I need here is to give it a background color, so I'll go background, and I need a black color. Click on apply and OK. And when we preview this one more time, save, we now have our page. Okay, we will fix this. There is something we call clearing float. That's what we're going to use to fix that problem. But for now, I think we are largely done, and we will call this a day. Hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching. I'm Sam. Bye.